clinic on site for emergencies.
Okay, I'm gonna
And
test
then
this.
most of their
Testing the
work is
stream.
going to be on the phone doing
Testing the
telehealth.
stream, going
All of the other
live.
staff are teleworking.
Right now I got, I guess,
But
Facebook
there
Live
are
with
also
all the
private agencies,
senators
of
and
course, that are
representatives, with
offering
Lieutenant
telehealth
Governor talking
services.
about
But
Corona
yes,
in
we are
Hawaii. So if you guys
providing,
want to
most of it is
listen,
now by
this is live
telephone
now. So
or Zoom.
I'll put this on for you.
So yes, that's kind of our modality currently.
Great, thank you. This might be a question. I'm not sure who wants to take this one, but people are asking, when might things get back to normal for those who are at risk or in at-risk groups? What will opening things up look like for them?
When the things gonna look normal? You guys haven't looked normal in years to me. I tell you, with all that, you're not getting enough sun. You're stuck at the state capitol for too long. But normal for the rest of people, maybe July 4th, they're going to start seeming normal because the cases will drop off as long as we don't mess up and have a big secondary spike. Travelers will come to Hawaii. As amazing as that seems right now, this is still everyone's favorite destination of a lifetime. And to be completely honest, the water's clearer than ever before. Some things have been repaired. Hotels are getting fixed up. The air is always clean. Now it's amazingly clean. People are going to come here. It's going to start seeming like normal. People are going to go to restaurants again, and they'll wear masks for a while, and then people will start forgetting when we haven't had a lot of cases. Also, coronaviruses do tend to burn out in summer months. This one might be different. Of course, it's been quite different than SARS and MERS, but I'll tell you, if we do a good job keeping our borders fairly tight as far as people coming in, Hawaii will look a lot like normal through the summer and fall. That is, of course, predicated on a fairly good response. Now, economically, it's going to take time, but I think people will start hustling. It's a pretty resilient state. And I know people are going to want to be doing work and double time and extra shifts to catch up. So I won't be surprised, actually, if summer starts looking a little bit more normal than people think.
Just piggyback on top of that, I think also part of the question that I heard was vulnerable, the people that are in some of those more vulnerable groups, so our kapuna, those with chronic medical conditions. And my advice to my patients right now is basically you're going to need to keep up the extra precautions for yourself in terms of the hand washing and staying away from people who are sick and keeping up with all your medicines and really being on top of stuff for a while, for 3, 6, 9 months. Where it looks different in terms of the economy, but for those that are really have, diabetes or high blood pressure, or people who are older, you really are going to want to do all the things that you should have been doing before in terms of keeping yourself with the hand washing and staying away from people who are sick, but really continuing with that for many months to come.
Great, thank you. People are asking about your opinion on hydroxychloroquine, Z-Paks, and zinc for COVID-19. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I can jump in there. So I'm not taking care of patients in the intensive care unit. So fortunately, I'm not having to make those decisions about what is the last ditch possible treatment. I will say from an outpatient perspective, from a preventive health perspective, there's nothing that's convinced me that I need to start treating people as outpatients with any kind of medications at this point until we have better information.
I would agree with that. There's also a big push for vitamin C from different parts of the community, but that happens a lot. There are true believers. One of my college roommates was a total vitamin C guy. So look, I think nutrients are good in general, especially water soluble ones where you can't overdose on them. I don't know, honestly, if any of these treatments do anything. Remember, most viruses burn out, and 80% of the cases of COVID-19 are virtually asymptomatic. So doctors get a lot of credit for curing stuff, when I think Josh would be the first to admit that a lot of the time we just let stuff run its course. And that's usually what's happening with COVID-19. The most important thing we can do for this disease is to make sure we keep people ventilating properly, keep them breathing. And once people get off the ventilator, they're back somewhat quickly, a couple weeks to normal, amazingly, if they've survived, of course. So that's That's the thing that we have to do. So take these medicines with a grain of salt, because some of them, like hydroxychloroquine, have very serious side effects. So be careful what you wish for when you take these meds.
Yeah, I'd like to jump back in there for a second, just to state. I know there's been a couple of things that have popped up. There was a case where somebody took their own chloroquine that was meant for cleaning pools because they thought it was going to keep them from having coronavirus. Don't want anybody doing anything like that. And then just as a cautionary tale, you know, there's a RCT in Brazil that they had to stop one of the arms because they were seeing so many prolonged QTC events, so many cardiac events in one of the treatment arms. So these are not benign things. So I want to make sure that nobody's just willy-nilly treating a bunch of people that could be causing more problems than were there to begin with.
Great, thank you. People are wondering if they had a bad flu or what they thought was the flu in January or February. Should they get tested, and could it have been, I guess, COVID?
I am hearing this every single day. I know I had it. I know I had it before anybody else did. The answer, and Lieutenant Governor can jump in here in a second, but I think right now there's no reason to test you. As we move forward with the antibody testing and try to figure out who's already had this, who's immune, what did the spread look like, then there's probably maybe a reason to get those people tested. But as of right now, don't come knocking down the door to try to get tested for that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think over time, look, that's the antibody test is going to be valuable for that. You will be able to check whether or not you had it. Everyone pretty much gets a cold at some point or a flu at some point during this season. This is the cold and flu season, which is ending right now here in April. We come later than the East Coast. So if you don't have the classic symptoms, which are in this case, I know they vary some, fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, you probably, if you've got runny nose this and runny eyes or scratchy throat, you probably have a regular cold. Now, if you have shortness of breath, you know, that's when you immediately call your healthcare provider or go to the emergency department. That has to be assessed. And an x-ray will tell us a lot. And of course, the test will happen. But short of that, if you just have vague symptoms and you're not really having any trouble breathing, you're okay. I do like the idea of getting people tested though, so they don't infect their loved ones, and then those same loved ones don't go out and go to work, or they might be, you know, one of the exempted classes to go out for workforce. You just don't want to spread it. Honestly, you should not be out at all. If you you know, if you're sick, you shouldn't, at this time of the year, you shouldn't be out.
Great, thank you. Just a couple more questions for the panelists. Once you've had COVID, can you get it again? And will there be a potential mutation of COVID-19? And if so, do you have an idea of when that could happen?
I'll go quickly. The conventional wisdom is once you've had one of these viruses, you usually are immune. And that goes for certain strains of flu, for coronaviruses, and so on. There have been some reports that some people seem to have gotten better and then had a second dose already or case of coronavirus. They're now thinking they may very well have not gotten completely over the disease in the first place. Traditionally, it can't happen. And then, let's see, what was the second part of the question?
The second part was, will there be a potential mutation of COVID-19? And if so, do you have any idea when that could happen?
These mutations happen randomly, so it's impossible to predict. There already are several strains, which means they've mutated slightly, and a large mutation that causes a whole separate infection that usually is a whole nother season or several years apart. So I don't think people should be worrying too much about that. But you know, the more cases you get, if you get 50 or 60 million cases, then there's a higher likelihood of mutation, and we'd have to deal with it.
Okay, great. And the last health-related question we have here is that data coming out of Washington State indicates that Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders are disproportionately affected by the virus. Are we seeing the same disparities here in Hawaii?
I'm afraid to say we are. And out of California, we have seen, I'm going to be on a call tomorrow at 4. They're seeing as much as 150 times the risk for some of the Pacific Islander community in that community in California. So we're going to look at some of that data. I don't know if it's been tested yet, whether it's because people are living in close proximity, if there are some cultural nuances like people embracing one another and not separating. Of course, we have multi-generational families in our Polynesian communities and households very often. So these are some of the questions. There is some question about extra incidence with diabetes, and so that's another concern. So I'll be making comments about that next week once I figure out what they really have to say.
Great. Thank you so much to our three presenters, to Lieutenant Governor and to Dr. Evans and to Kathleen for all of your information and your wisdom on public health. We are so thankful that you took the time this evening to join us and to share your wisdom with everyone in our community. So what we want to do right now is there are a lot of other questions we are getting from the community about other questions not related to public health. And we do want to respect everyone's time as well. So I know the presenters are very busy. So if you, you know, don't want to or can't stay on the line with us, that's totally fine. You can kind of close off your Zoom, but we will try to go through maybe a couple because we know that there are a lot that are coming in for different topics. And we have our elected officials on. Oh, yes, Senator Thielen.
Sorry, Lisa, I wanted to offer though for the health officials on if they wanted to make some closing remarks, especially with the last question we got, because I know we do have a lot of folks that are wondering how this is going to play out, you know, in our community. So
great idea. Yes, let's do that before you guys sign off. So maybe if we want to have Lieutenant Governor want to go first, and we can just go in that same order that you presented.
I'll just say thank you for welcoming me. It was really my honor. Sorry I talked so much. You can get me anytime. I'll send some info there, but you guys are terrific. And anytime you need, I'll be happy to answer a couple questions or just be around.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just want to echo that as well. I really appreciate being able to be part of this this panel. I do want to just say a quick thing about the concern about how it might affect our community specifically. And I know all in the news has been about how it's affecting the African American community on the mainland in certain places. And I do think that we need to be really vigilant, especially here for me at the Waimanalo Health Center, serving the Native Hawaiians here, that we are paying extra attention to make sure that we are maintaining all of the health that we can in terms of all of the treatment for diabetes, all of the social supports, all of the mental health supports, because this is the kind of thing that really exposes the fault lines in our society, where those who are already at less of an advantage get hit harder. And so I think we need to be really vigilant on making sure that we pay attention to that as it rolls forward. And I really appreciate what the Lieutenant Governor was saying about looking at that data in Hawaii, and I'll be looking forward to seeing what that says.
Any last words, Kathleen?
Sure, just a quick mahalo to everybody, and please breathe in and out as much as you can. Take care of yourself and others, and yeah, please look out for your mental health because we need to every day during this and after. And I'm hopeful. I hope you are. Keep that hope because things are going to get better. We're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our presenters. So we do want to respect everyone's time this evening. There were a couple of more general questions that were related to the health questions that we can kind of throw out there. The question came up about, is there a plan to become less reliant on tourism? That was when the Lieutenant Governor spoke about tourism and, you know, bringing in COVID as more tourists come back into the state. So I don't know if there's any of the elected officials that might want to speak on that question.
Yeah, I'll chime in. And this is sort of the perennial question that we talk about all the time. So there's, I'll cut it down to like, 20 seconds, but in short, that's why we're trying to diversify our economy. Look at growing local agriculture. We export billions of dollars to bring in local food. Same with energy. We export somewhere in the neighborhood of now between $6 to $8 billion a year to bring in fossil fuels. So to replace the money that we get from tourism, which is fluctuating wildly, somewhere now between $15 to $20 billion a year, and with $8 to $10 billion of local food, energy, all that stuff that we can keep right here and keep that money circulating, that could be a huge driver in our economy. That's why we're making all this progress and putting all this effort into doing that. So it's going to take time, but already we've seen dividends. We've saved $1/3 billion in our local economy because of our progress toward energy. We're seeing local food hubs come out of the woodwork now. And I think the real challenge is going to be, how do we learn from this crisis and accelerate these things that we're trying to do? Not so that we're 20 years down the road talking about diversifying away from tourism, but rather we have opportunity for our kids who are growing up here to now go into these new industries that are at that point mature.
Thank you. The next question is, how can we recover from having all of our businesses closed for over a month? Anyone want to take that question?
I'll take a shot at it. I mean, I'm not sure if recovery is exactly the right word to use. I mean, I think we're just going to have to try to get by as much as we can. There is not going to be any spike in business after this that's going to allow them to fully recover. I'm glad that the federal government is taking a stand and pumping a lot of money into a lot of economies right now, and helping a lot of small businesses stay afloat through the Paycheck Protection Program and through other programs like that. We're really hopeful that another wave of federal funding is going to come soon to help the businesses in our community to stay afloat and just weather the storm right now. But as far as full recovery, I think that's going to be a long time coming. I think a lot of businesses are going to continue to feel the hurt for a while and may never fully recover, but I'm hoping that they can stay afloat. And I'm sure we're all hoping that they're going to stay afloat long enough to be able to get stable again.
Okay, and we're running on almost an hour and a half, so we'll take one last question, and this is a question that has been coming up quite a bit because it's been in the news. So it's focused on salary reductions and the whole issue with that. So if anyone wants to jump in with that question as kind of our final question for tonight.
Sure, I'll jump back in. Back in 2009, when the economy tanked in the last recession, the legislature at the time did defer salary increases and everything else. This time around, we're not sure what's going to happen with, I think, the governor's proposal. There seemed to be pretty strong pushback on cutting everyone's salaries by 20%, which would destroy a lot of families. But there will probably be some scale back on the budget. I think the legislature, I can speak only for myself, but I think the legislature has a responsibility to look at some sort of responsible action as well. So I would expect there'd be further talk about that, but it's contingent on the legislature reconvening, because we don't have the power to just unilaterally reduce salaries. We have to actually pass something to do that. So if that's something that folks are thinking, just make sure to keep pinging us on it so that we can follow up when the time comes.
If I may also, can I add, so we have, I believe it's like $487 million in the rainy day fund, and I'm sorry, $387 million in the rainy day fund and $187 million in the hurricane relief fund. And we need about $200 million, is my understanding, to get through June 30th, which is the end of this fiscal year. Seems like a reasonable thing to do. This is kind of a rainy day period. And I'm just speaking for myself here. And that hopefully will give us some time to see exactly what parts of the economy can restart between now and usually takes about a 30-day lag time to see. But that would give us some help. Obviously, if people need to restrict government wages, we have to be careful about it. Not for me or for our friends on this call so much, but for a lot of people making $32,000 a year, it's just, if you restrict someone 20%, it's devastating. And we can't afford to send more teachers back to the mainland and running for the hills. I mean, that kind of thing doesn't work. So I'm hopeful that we'll have a compromise, at least to get through the next 3 months, so we can fully assess it. And there will be some economic activity coming back, believe me. I don't want to play a game of chicken, though, with the coronavirus. So we better have a good plan to keep us safe. That's most important, but we'll get back to normal before you know it.
And from the city and county of Honolulu's position, at this point, we're not planning any furloughs or any pay cuts. For the elected officials, though, the city council has already told the city salary commission chair that if pay raises for elected officials and department heads of any amount were proposed in the salary commission's final recommendation, the city council would very likely reject said pay raises. And the reason that we said we very likely is because the three of us in council leadership who wrote that letter could speak for ourselves, but we haven't run the issue by all of our colleagues. But in the discussions that my staff has had with my colleagues' staff, I doubt very much that the Honolulu City Council would accept pay increases for any of the elected officials. But Josh, agree with you wholeheartedly with our teachers and our government workforce. Our teachers are still working. All four of my kids are in public school. We are working with our teachers Monday through Friday, doing distance learning. Our teachers are still putting together classroom activities for our kids. They're on with them for a couple hours every day. After that, there are also lessons that are planned that are given from the teachers to the students. And on top of that, you also have the workforce in the departments of labor, industrial relations, at the city level, planning and permitting, design and construction, environmental services, who are picking up the trash, who are still ensuring that government is continuing. And to ask these folks to take a 20% pay cut would be very difficult for them and for their families. I can understand a pay increase certainly should not be going forward at this time, but agree with you, Josh, that a pay cut would be quite tough for these folks.
Yeah, it would be. It would be. But again, hey, thank you guys for welcoming me, and I really enjoy it, and I love your part of the island. So, you know, thank you for working so hard.
Lieutenant Governor, real quick before you go, thanks for spending all that time on Kupuna. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was because of you.
Thank you so much. So, you know, we want to just make sure that everyone knows that the Windward Legislative Team, we are committed to making sure that our communities get the information that they need, that you guys feel like you're a part of this discussion. And so, you know, this is the second town hall that we have done. The last week we did one that was focused on businesses and helping with the federal legislation that went through for businesses. Tonight's one was focused on public health. So we, you know, want to do future town halls as well that we will advertise, and it'll be opportunities for more questions to get answered. And as I mentioned in the beginning as well, if you have questions, feel free to reach out directly to your representative and senator with your questions, because that's a way to have that direct contact and the answers that you need. So before we kind of sign off, I'd like to give each of the elected officials an opportunity to just say a few words before we finish up. So we'll have Senator Laura Thielen.
Well, thanks to all of our speakers who are here tonight. I think it's really helpful. We hear general health information nationally, but to get advice from people locally, you know, because there's a lot of unique situations here. You know, we do have the multi-generation households. We have, you know, a lot of people living close to each other, somebody working, a lot of people not. So I really appreciate what Dr. Joshua Evans was sharing about, you know, how somebody who is working can come home and keep the rest of the family safe. I think, you know, even though we're going to see some restarting of the economic activity, we're going to have to keep these good practices to keep people safe for, you know, more like the 6, 9, 12 months until we get a vaccine. So, you know, I just appreciate all the time that they gave and the information they shared, and mahalo for everyone who's listening.
Thank you so much, Senator Keokalole.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, for moderating. Thank you, everyone else on the panel for joining us. And thank you, everyone out there who's watching. I'm really happy that so many people tuned in today to get information. Like Lisa said, we're happy to follow up and just try and make sure that we're providing information. And I don't want to sugarcoat what's going on and the nature of the challenge that's ahead of us from a budget standpoint and from the disease standpoint. I'm really nervous, as the Lieutenant Governor alluded to earlier, that we're doing so well that people will have the inclination to take their foot off the gas and get lax with the social distancing, with the separation and the sheltering. And we're so close. We don't want to end up like Japan, who flattened and then now they're having to fight a spike, because that's going to make it so much harder for our businesses to stay open if they shut down, start up again, and have to shut down again. So we're all in this together. We got to try and work together to see it through to the end and stick together. This is the salary thing, the unemployment problems. We're going to keep careening from one sort of crisis to another for a while now, because we've never shut the state of Hawaii down before. And it's not just going to turn on like that. So we got to try and work together and stick it out. And so thank you guys for keeping yourselves informed and reaching out to us to get information.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Scott Matayoshi.
Yeah, I want to echo everyone's thanks to the speakers, and thank you, Lisa, for moderating. We really appreciate that. I want to emphasize what the other legislators have said. I mean, let's not take our foot off the gas here. We really want to make sure that once we are over this, that we keep our families safe in the long run. So please continue to frequently wash your hands and take other protective measures. I also wanted to emphasize that this might not be the best way that this came about, but I've always been saying that we do need to diversify our economy, and this, I think, is a huge wake-up call to us, how relying on tourism is kind of a one-legged stool. And when that got kicked out, the whole economy fell to pieces. I'm really hoping that we are able to focus on certain things that we have a competitive advantage on in Hawaii. And I think a lot of that focuses on agriculture, aquaculture, things that we can do better than anywhere else in the world. Not talking about volume of exports, but the quality and type of exports that our geographic isolation allows us to grow and send other places. So I'm hoping that next year at the legislature, we can tackle that issue and shore up other portions of our economy and start to grow other portions of our economy, so that if this does happen again, or coronavirus does relapse in the next cold and flu season, that we're going to be ready and hopefully have a little bit more of a stable foundation, so our economy can have something to stand on.
Thank you. Representative Chris Lee. Sorry, you have to unmute, Chris.
I was getting so comfortable listening to Scott and everybody else talk. I just building on what Scott was saying, I think this is amazing. We've had some folks were asking us on the comments how many people are attending tonight. We've had somewhere between 400 to 500 people watching the live stream, which is amazing, bigger than any other regular public meeting we have like this. So this kind of engagement is awesome. But on what Scott said, once things sort of start heading back to normal, we have a choice to make as a community. Can we capture this engagement and get people involved in these issues, whether it's diversifying the economy or thinking about local food or whatever it is? Because this is the chance. I mean, for so long, we've built our entire economy and everything on sort of this way that things have been done 100 years ago. And the decisions were controlled by a handful of interests pouring a bunch of money into certain things. And this event has short-circuited that and opened up opportunity for people from the ground up to get together, whether you're small farmers or teachers or whatever it is, coming out and doing things differently. So how do we capitalize on that? How do we make sure that we carry this forward and build out this new 21st century economy and way of life that really empowers us all? That, I think, is the challenge that we face next, that we got to start thinking about.
Thank you. And Council Chair Ikaika Anderson.
Thank you folks all very much, my Windward colleagues in the state legislature, for always being so gracious and allowing our office to participate with you folks as full partners in serving our community. Would just like to continue to remind folks to please be healthy, be safe, continue to practice good hygiene, wash your hands, take care of your kupuna. I live in a multi-generational household myself. My grandparents reside right across the lawn from us. And as Dr. Josh was saying, we really do need to ensure that we are keeping our distance for our kupuna. We do love them. We want to make sure they're okay. But at the same time, we have to ensure that we respect their health. And if at all possible, let's try to do our kupuna shopping for them in their errands as well. Would like to remind folks so we can do everything we can to keep them at home and to keep them safe. As always, if our offices can be of assistance, all of us are here to serve. My staff continues to work at home every single day, Monday through Friday, sometime into the evenings. My staff member, Kathy Lee, is on here with us tonight. Please feel free to contact us and reach out. We're more than happy, and we're certainly available to assist. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And I just want to
Okay,
echo.
can I cut in real quick? I'm sorry, I'm taking extra time. I just wanted to let everyone know that the Senate Special Committee on COVID-19 is holding a briefing tomorrow. It'll be featured on Olelo Channel 49 from 11 a.m. to about 3 p.m. And the reason I want everybody to know about it is there are three main issues that we're going to have the state departments come in and update us on the status of. The first is the unemployment system and the overrun, the backlog, and their plan. We're gonna have the governor's chief of staff, the Department of Human Resources, and the Department of Labor at 11. At 1:15, we're gonna have the Attorney General and the Office of Consumer Protection talk about evictions and foreclosures. And at 2 p.m., we're gonna have the Airports Division of the Department of Transportation and the Hawaii Tourism Authority come in and explain to us how they're gonna clean up the quarantine enforcement. So 11 to 3 p.m., it's going to be broadcast on Olelo Channel 49. So if you're interested, send us questions and we can try and get those to the departments, or you guys can just watch live. Thank you.
I just want to say one last thing too. On that note, this is being broadcast to all our Facebook pages and on Zoom and everything. I mean, the comments were really good. So if folks want to have us do something like this, like Lisa had mentioned, on some specific topic or whatever, write in right now and let us know, because we're going to go through all these comments and try and figure out what people were interested in. And rather than us trying to just pull something out of the air for the next one of these, maybe next week or the week after, write in and let us know what that topic is, whether it's, you know, more of this, more about COVID, more about resources, more about crime, or any other issue. It's all on the table.
Great, thank you so much. And I just want to echo, you know, all the comments that my colleagues had made. We just really want to thank our panelists for tonight. I did notice that there is an announcement. The Kaneohe Neighborhood Board, for those of you who live in the Kaneohe area, are going to be holding an informal meeting via Zoom next week, Thursday at 7. So if you are interested in attending that, be on the lookout on Facebook and other media for that information. But next week, Thursday, Kaneohe Neighborhood Board will be doing something on Zoom. And so we just want to, you know, end by just saying that we got a lot of questions. We know people are interested in a lot of areas. Similar to what Rep. Lee said, you know, please let us know what you're interested in. But if you had asked a question and we didn't get to your question, our staff have been, you know, writing all of this down and tracking all of the questions, and they will do their best. Our offices will do our best to get back to you with some kind of answer over the next few days. So if you do not get something from us over the next few days with an answer to your question that you posed, please reach out to us. Email any one of us, your representative or your senator or council member Anderson, and we will get you that information that you are looking for. So thank you so much for joining us. We will get through this together as a community. We are a strong Windward community, and we are all very proud to live on this side of the island. So please stay safe and take care of yourself and your family. Aloha.